All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Our topic tonight is talking about how to read and understand and interpret financial aid offers that the student receives after they've been accepted. So you're not going to get any indication of financial aid until and if the student is accepted to that school. Okay, so you get accepted and then you get the offer of aid. So I just wanted to back up a couple steps before we get into that, just to review a little bit. So I think it's important to understand that financial aid is, for most families, just a portion of the strategy on how they pay for the student's college. So I showed this slide previously. So, it is really a combination of different resources that come together to be able to pay for college today. And so tonight we're going to look at the financial aid piece, which is, which drives scholarships, grants, loans, work study, those kinds of things that you get offered after you've applied, submitted your financial aid forms, and the school has an opportunity to look at your situation. So the financial aid package or offer, when you get it, is going to have basically three parts that you need to be concerned about. One are going to be loans. And as we discussed previously, depending on how much need or not you establish at that school, and again, need is established by comparing what the formula that is used to determine your fair share of 1 year's cost of education, comparing that to the cost of the school. If the school costs more than what they say you can afford, then there's need. If it's the same or less, then you don't have need. But you could still be offered a loan because there are non-need based loan opportunities. So loans will be the first thing that one is offered in the financial aid package, no matter how much need you establish. The first thing they're going to give you is a loan, and for the student, it's going to be the Stafford loan, and we'll look at that a little bit more detail. Then a lot of schools participate in a work study program that is considered part of the financial aid package. They assign the student a job on the university for a limited number of hours a week, and the student is paid to work that job. So that money is not just handed over, the student has to work to earn it. So we need to keep in mind that complexion there, because if we don't work, we don't get the money. So we can't count on that money unless the student is actually going to show up and do the job. And in some schools, that money can be put directly into the student's account to help pay for other things like tuition, room and board, and those sorts of things. Other schools pay it directly to the student. So you need to understand the policy of the school and how they pay the student for work study. I think as a parent, you need to know that whether that money is being handed directly to your student or not, or going into their account. So that's something to look for. And then the stuff we all like, the free stuff, the grants and scholarships. The term grant is usually reserved for need-based sort of awards. Scholarships implies merit. So I think that's pretty intuitive. All right. So when we look at a financial aid award, what you have to understand is that they come in all different shapes and sizes. And the schools package them in a certain way and display the offer in a certain way to, sometimes it's on purpose and other times it's not, but it can be confusing. So I'm going to show you some examples of previous financial aid awards, and sort of talk through them so you can see how if your student is accepted to 4, 5, 6 schools, those financial aid award letters may all look different. And so really, at the end of the day, what becomes important is to be able to look at those award letters, apples to apples, oranges to oranges, not apples to oranges, right? So that you really understand what you're getting and what types of aid that is being offered, and what that implies in terms of the family's financial obligation or not in the process. So let's look at some sample letters. Let's see. So I'm gonna do that one last. Let's go down here. We'll go bottom to top. Okay, so let's see. What's my first letter? What happened? There it is. Okay, I'm getting to it. Okay, so this is a letter from Pace University. Okay, so here's the guts of it. So this one is organized fairly nicely. You have your gift aid up front, and that's the free stuff. So you can see there's it tells you what type of award it is, and then it tells you the amount, and it has it broken down by semester. That's usually how things operate financially at colleges, by semester. So you'll get a bill for fall semester, you'll get a bill for spring semester. And so this obviously is applicable to that billing situation. So you can see that the student has been given $34,000 plus in free assistance. It sounds pretty great. So they, and I'm looking at the descriptions. PACE Incentive Award. I'm assuming that probably is a merit award because it doesn't have grant attached to it. Now the PACE grant, I would think would be need-based. And then we have a Pell Grant, which is also need-based. So because they have a Pell Grant, this family established a great deal of need, because you don't get a Pell Grant. If you remember last time we looked at the different programs, you don't get a Pell Grant unless your income is quite low, under $25,000 a year. So, in fact, the incentive award may in fact be a grant as well. I can't be sure. So that'd be something you want to look at to see. So the other thing to keep in mind when we look at gift aid is what it is, what its complexion is. Is it something that's renewable each year, or is it just for a freshman to get, to lure a freshman to that school, and then it's going to disappear, after the freshman year. So we need to know that. We also need to know what they need to do to keep it, especially if it's a merit award, because most merit scholarships have some sort of requirement in terms of maintaining certain level of academic performance in order to be able to renew that scholarship year over year. So we need to know that as well. So there's a couple of things that are not normally on the financial aid award letter. In some cases they are, but in most cases that's not divulged. But it is, information that you can find on the website or by calling the school. So I think it's important to know that, so you can kind of monitor how your student is doing and how against that threshold, right? So important to know. Okay, then we have a second piece, which is where they talk about the loans. Okay, other aid. Now, I just keep in mind that student loans are considered financial aid, and this is confusing for a lot of students because it's not called a loan in most cases. It's called financial aid when they see it. And there was a survey done not too long ago of some college students. About 60% of them didn't realize that they were going to have to pay this stuff back, right? So you need to make sure that our students are financially literate, at least in that regard, that they know that they're going to have to pay these loans back at some point. So Stafford loan, that's the backbone of the government's program. Stafford loan is a promissory note between the student and the government. Mom and dad don't sign it, anything. They don't co-sign. They can be a reference, but that's it. And here is an example of need versus non-need loan. Okay, so you can see both a subsidized Stafford loan and an unsubsidized Stafford loan. All right, subsidized means it's need driven, and the government pays interest on that loan for the student while they're in school. Unsubsidized means the student it's non-need driven, and the student is responsible for paying interest while in school. All right, and so twice a year, the student is going to get a bill saying this is the interest you owe on your unsubsidized Stafford loan. Okay, now you don't have to pay it, you can defer it, but I would suggest that you pay that interest, because if you don't, it's going to capitalize, which is a financial term meaning that you're piling more money on the principal of the loan. That interest becomes principal, and then you're paying interest on a greater amount of principal each time they roll the dice, right? So by the time, if you're not paying that interest, by the time you get out of school and get ready to pay, 20,000 could quickly be 35,000. So pay the interest on any unsubsidized amounts. Okay, here's another thing to keep an eye on. Okay, direct plus parent loan. Okay, a lot of schools will pad their offer with the parent loan. Okay, so this is what part of this letter I don't like, is that they've stuck that in there. Okay, $21,000 a year. They're saying the parent is going to take a loan to cover that piece of the cost. Okay, this is, so this is not really a fair comparison of what they're getting versus cost. Okay, because this is a loan. So you look at it, they got 34,000 in free stuff, yes, but they're also expecting 26,000 in loans. So you need to bear that in mind. And that 21 is saying that the parent's going to take out that much in loan in their own name. Okay, so just be aware of that. And then down below, we've got the expenses. Okay, and they've got it split out by direct expense, which is those tuition, fees, room, board, those things that you're going to be billed for. And then you've got the indirect expenses, those things that in some way, the family can, affect, books and supplies. You don't have to buy new, you can buy used. Transportation, well, how many times are you going to come home and to visit and bring your laundry? Personal expense, what does that, amount to? What are those, how are we going to manage that? And then, is there other things involved? So they've estimated that amount. So that is a piece that one can control in terms of cost a lot of times. So the tuition, fees, room and board, direct expenses, you can't, right? So what we're doing is we're comparing the total cost right here, 61,666, to this 34,815. And there's two comparisons that you probably want to make. One is the 34,815 plus the student loan. Okay, that 5,500. So add that to this. What do you got? About 40,000, right? So that minus that means that the family is really going to absorb about 20,000, 21,000, something around there. I'm just doing the math in my head, but 20,000, 21,000 is going to be the family's cost. Guess what? Right there, the plus loan, right? So, that's, what you can look at. Now, if you want, you can obviously take that student or the family or the parent loan out and cover the void that's left after what the student has been offered. But you know, that's a kind of a, I guess, a strategy question when it comes to how are we going to pay the family's part of this. All right. So we went in pretty deep there. So here's another example. This is Portland. Portland doesn't even show you what the cost is. In this case, they just tell you what they're going to give you. So this is pretty, pretty slim, but it's straightforward, gives you the information you need to know. They've also included the parent loan here, as you can see on the loan part. Here's gift. They did separate it out as gift and self-help, which is what I like, instead of commingling it, which makes it even more confusing. So self-help is a term that is used when we talk about loans and work study, because you have to pay it back or you have to earn it, right? Gift aid, that's the free stuff, right? So she got the student got a president's scholarship, obviously merit driven, $15,000 a year. And then they gave her a Portland grant. It's probably, maybe a need-based a grant because of that name, of the grant in the name. So a very simple display, and pretty easy to understand. They're at Portland. All right. Other than the fact that we don't know how much the total cost is, so we can do those comparisons. So we're going to have to find that out to do our math. And yes, we need to do the math so we know. All right. So here is another one. This is Merrimack College. All right. And again, you should notice, again, it's the format is totally different, displayed differently. And in this case, you see that everything is commingled. But what else also isn't here is there's no plus loan. The parent loan is not in here, but everything is put together. So you've got to separate it out. The loan term is there, so it's pretty easy in this case to separate, the gift aid from the self-help. But again, they give you the cost, total cost, and then they actually do the math for you, so you know what the family's share is here, which is nice. I like that. That makes it easy. They say, okay, and this does not include the parent loan, right? So in this case, it's almost a mirror of that one we were looking at, where the plus loan is around 20,000. But in this case, they don't. They just say the family's got to figure out how to pay the 19,900. All right. Okay, so that's that one. And this one, again, this is Chapman. All right. So again, they point out here, I had kind of highlighted some of the parent plus loan. Again, the parent loan is included here. Again, they've commingled everything here at Chapman. They've done the cost of attendance calculation for you. And then again here, looking at the numbers, the cost of attendance minus the family's EFC in this case was 12,617, which means they had need of 47,956. Now, why is that? Why do I do this math? Because just because you, as I remember, when I spoke last time about how financial aid works, just because you qualify for a certain amount of need doesn't mean you're going to get it. And in this case, they're showing 42,150, but again, I would take the 4,000 out of there, because that's the plus loan. That's not student aid. That's the family's or the parents' loan. So I would take another 4 off of this. So it'd be more like 38 as compared to 47, which you qualified for. So they're saying it's 75%, but it's really not. It's less than that in reality. So is that a reason to talk to the financial aid office and say, hey, historically you guys have been, covering a certain amount. Do you know how much they've been historically covering? That information's available. Look it up and make sure that they're treating you fairly based upon how they historically distributed aid. Have a conversation with them if they're not. That's a reason to have a conversation, not just because you don't like the numbers, right? Okay. So we've looked at four different letters, all different shapes and sizes and formats. But I think there's some common thread there, right? Is that you need to be able to compare the free stuff against the loan or the gift or the self-help work study and loans, and be able to separate out the parent loan from those numbers so that you see exactly what the student themselves are being offered. Okay, so what we want to be able to do is create a circumstance where we can put these side by side in the same format, so that it's easy to understand what we're giving. So we use this little spreadsheet thing. This is James Madison, but basically what it does is, we've got the total cost. We know what the family is being expected to pay based upon the results of the FAFSA filing, whatever. The difference is need, right? $11,220. Here's the financial aid that the student received. All right. The difference, or here's the total aid. The difference is that amount. This is out of pocket. So that, we didn't get we got the 11, but we didn't get the 220. So we've got an out of pocket of 220 plus what they said we can afford, right, as a family. So the two together is a total out of pocket for the family. So we know exactly what we're going to be looking at. If we don't understand that we're paying, what they're not giving us in terms of what what they are not covering for financial aid or financial need. I'm sorry. If we're not doing that math, we could be surprised in terms of having to pay a lot more than we think because we haven't done that math. I hope I'm making sense. And then, so total out of pocket for the family, in this case, is $13,500. And then what we like to do is take it down to a monthly amount. So, okay, so in this case, the family has got to absorb $1,125 a month over and above what the student has been offered in terms of financial aid. All right. Now, and again, we talk about historical performance. Again, here are the numbers. So this student did very well in terms of actual versus historical distribution of aid. And again, the numbers here are positive as well in terms of action, gift aid versus self-help. So it's really, and in this case, a case of, for the family trying to figure out how to absorb, that 1,125 a month. Now, if there's, situations that have occurred since you filed, and again, we talked about this last time as well, that we're basing, our FAFSA filing or whatever on, a 2-year-old tax information. Things have changed. If you have a senior this year, you're filing, we've come through a horrendous year. The family's financial situation may be totally different than it was, in 2019, which is the numbers we'll be using for filing, not 2020. So, we used to have two incomes. Now we have one income. What does that look like? So understand that if you have a senior right now, you need to really look at that situation and make sure that you're talking to the financial aid office of the school that you intend to, the student intends to attend, to make sure that they understand the change in your financial circumstance so they can use professional judgment to adjust that expected family contribution number to better reflect your financial situation, to help out, and they will do that. All right. So you want to do this for each school, right? Whoops. You want to do that for each school that what happened to my okay, so you want to do that for each school that you've been accepted to and you received an offer for. And, you want to separate out the pieces, do the math, and so you understand exactly where you're getting the biggest bang for the buck, so to speak. Okay, I think that's important. And then the last piece of this process, in terms of paying, okay, is once we're down to this number here that the family's got to take care of on a monthly basis, how do you deal with that? Okay, well, if you go to our website, there is a form under the forms. Actually, it's under paying for college tab. There's a thing that says how to pay the family's share. All right. So kind of a tutorial takes you through steps of determining how to pay for your share of the cost. And it's based on a hierarchy of what we want to do first. So it goes from absorbing it into the family budget to private loans. Okay, what is the thing we want to look at first, and then second, third, etc. So if you look here, total, it gives you the formulas to do. If you have 529s, how to use it, and then you look at the budget, and then you start looking at options. Again, there's the opportunity to look at outside scholarships as well. This is something that's not included, obviously, in the financial aid offer from the school. That's why I call it outside scholarships. Some people call them private scholarships. However, be aware that these things are reportable outside scholarships. So if you've established need and the school gives you a grant and you get $1,000 from an outside scholarship, the school is in their right legally to take back $1,000 of their grant money. All right, because the federal rules stipulate that while the family is going to receive financial assistance, they are going to pay their fair share. And that's what the expected family contribution is. So that is not going to shift. Okay. If you establish need and you get free money from the school and you get an outside scholarship, the school's within their right to take back that equivalent amount of any grant money that they've given you. Okay. Why is that important? Well, for two reasons. One, doesn't mean you should stop looking for outside scholarships. All right. But it also means you need to understand what the school's policy is. Okay. Because some schools will allow negotiation to occur and say, okay, well, maybe we can remove, some of the loan, 1,000 of the loan instead of 1,000 of grant or whatever. Okay. So you need to understand what the policy of the school is in terms of how they treat outside scholarships. Every school is different. And so they have the ability to make their own judgments based upon family circumstances, et cetera, professional judgment, they call it. So while there's rules regarding how this whole thing's supposed to work, financial aid officers at the schools have the ability to, change it up if they feel it's warranted. Okay, so again, I think the message is you need to be involved. Don't just, submit the information and, wait for things to happen. You need to really understand how it works and be involved and engaged in the process to make sure that the right numbers are being looked at, family's financial situation is being looked at correctly, and you're getting the aid that the student deserves and is qualified for. All right. And then, once we get, we've got that straight, you can come here and figure out how to pay the family share down to include, you notice plus loan at the bottom here. So that's the option. After everything else has been looked at, the parents take out a loan to cover the difference, or do we look at a private, loan? And if that's the case, we actually have a partnership with Sallie Mae. That's also accessible through our website under the payment tab, where you can access that the Sallie Mae private student loan. And there's options there, actually in the student's name with parent cosigner, and that sort of thing. So it's it's much more palatable than going out looking for stuff on your own. So we do have that partnership that's available to our clients through our website. All right. So that kind of takes you through the whole process of looking at what's being offered and how to address paying the family share. And I hope I made sense through all that. So now it's time for questions. Wow. Okay. All right. Any questions? Again, this is being recorded, so it'll be published on the website. If you can revisit it at your leisure, or you can reach out to us if you want to have a individual conversation about your financial circumstances with me. I'd be happy to do that. All right, I'm going to take the silence as meaning that everybody is just happy as can be, and we will allow you to get on with your evening. And again, if you do have questions after we get off, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you for your attention. And I think we have another workshop coming up in a couple of weeks about outside scholarships. So we'll meet again in a couple of weeks. So that being said, I'll let you all go, and you have a great Friday and a great weekend, and happy Thanksgiving.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Have a great night.